They took the photo at 11:47 on a Saturday night. Best trip ever, Vanessa wrote underneath it. I wasn't in it. I was never in it. I was the reason it existed. I was 19 years old, sitting in a parking lot with one backpack, $40, and an ATM receipt that said my balance was zero. Not low. Not overdrawn. Zero. Because 3 years of Saturday shifts and skipped class trips and birthday money folded into envelopes had added up to $9,300, and my mother had spent every cent of it on my sister before I could move it to an account with only my name on it. She beat me to it by 9 days. My name is Linda Myers. I'm 30 years old. I'm a pediatric nurse. And in 12 years of carrying weight that wasn't mine, I got very good at two things: keeping records and staying calm when the room needed me to fall apart. Both of those skills came from the same source. The family that built them had no idea what they were building. By the time they figured it out, I was already sitting in a courthouse with a green folder on my lap and 12 years of dated receipts inside it. Here is what nobody in that room knew. I had not come to punish anyone. I had come to do something much simpler and much harder. I had come to say the truth out loud, in public, into a microphone, under oath. And when I did, the silence after was the loudest thing my family ever gave me. Welcome to Calm Drama Stories, where the quiet ones finally get to say their piece. These are stories about family, betrayal, and the moment a person stops absorbing the cost of other people's comfort. If you have ever been handed the title of the strong one right before someone passed you the invoice, this story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from tonight. And subscribe, because the courthouse scene is the reason I finally decided to tell this. Let me go back to the beginning, because the ending only makes sense if you know where this started. I grew up in a 2-story house outside Columbus, Ohio, with a cross-stitched sign in the living room that said Family First. My mother Carol stitched it herself. I used to believe it. It took me years to notice the sign never said which family member came first. That house ran on a 2-job system. My sister Vanessa, 4 years older, held the first job, being fragile. She was the pretty one, the sensitive one, the one whose feelings could be injured by a weather report. Her job came with full benefits. My job was the other one. When Vanessa knocked my mother's casserole dish off the counter at 12, I was 8, and I was the one handed the broom. Nobody announced it. It was understood the way you understand which chair belongs to your father. I was a pediatric nurse before I ever set foot in a nursing program. I just didn't know the job title yet. I knew the skill: track everyone in the room, adjust your weight, don't need anything loudly. When I brought home straight A's, the report card stayed on the refrigerator about 3 days. Vanessa's certificate for participating in a middle school choir hung framed in the hallway for a decade. I am not saying my parents didn't love me. I am saying their love for me came in one flavor: confidence. Confidence that I'd manage, cope, absorb, and clean up after. In that house, "you're the strong one" was never a compliment that stood alone. I learned to flinch when I heard it. The way a nurse flinches when an admission comes in and the chart is already a foot thick. Because in the Myers family, praise for me always traveled with luggage. Somebody was about to hand me something heavy, and the compliment was the receipt. At 15, I got a job at Hartman's Grocery, 4 evenings a week and Saturdays. My goal was written down and laminated: nursing school. My mother co-signed as joint owner on my savings account because the bank required a parent for a minor. That detail matters the way the first line of a lab result matters. Write it down somewhere. For 3 years I deposited nearly every paycheck. Birthday money went in. Christmas money went in. I skipped the class trip to Chicago and put that in too. By the spring of my senior year, the balance read $9,300. I used to look at that number the way some girls looked at prom dresses. I had circled a date on my calendar, my 18th birthday, the morning I could open my own account in my name alone and move every dollar out of reach. I had grown up in that house. I was fluent in it. I planned to move the money the morning I turned 18. My mother beat me to it by 9 days. I found out at an ATM outside Hartman's on a Thursday after my shift. The receipt said my available balance was zero. I fed my card back in and checked again because a mistake seemed more likely than the truth. Then I drove to the house, walked into the kitchen, and set the receipt on the table in front of my mother. She didn't pretend to be surprised. She was drying a pot and kept drying it. She said Vanessa was 4 months behind on rent. She said the car was about to be repossessed, and a mother with a baby cannot be without a car. She said the word family the way other people say obviously. My father studied the salt shaker like it owed him money. I asked when they were planning to tell me. My mother set the pot down and gave me the look she saved for when I was being difficult, which in our house meant inconvenient. She said they were going to explain at dinner. She said crises don't wait for birthdays. And then she said the sentence that had run my entire childhood. The sentence I could stitch on a pillow from memory. You're the strong one, Linda. You'll be fine. No mention of paying it back. None. That was the part that reorganized something in my chest. It wasn't alone in their minds. It had never been my money in their minds. It was the family's emergency fund. I was the family's emergency employee. And the emergency was always going to be Vanessa. I did not scream. I made phone calls. The bank was polite and useless. Joint account, joint owner. Every withdrawal legal as sunlight. The officer at the non-emergency line sighed the sigh of someone who had heard this exact story before. If her name's on the account, it's not theft, he said. There's no crime here, miss, just family. I want to be clear about this part because people love to ask why I didn't fight it. I did fight it. I lost in under 24 hours on the merits to a rulebook my mother had signed us into when I was 15. Saturday, my parents called me to the kitchen. On the table sat a typed piece of paper. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. The header said family loan agreement, but the text said the $9,300 had been my voluntary gift to my sister, offered freely, no repayment expected. All it needed was my signature. My mother held out a pen and explained that signing would let everyone move forward without ugliness. I asked what happened if I didn't sign. My mother's voice went flat and smooth as a frozen lake. Under this roof we are a family. If you can't live with that, Linda, there's the door. I looked at my father. He looked at the table. I went upstairs and pulled my backpack out of the closet and started folding. You'd be surprised what makes the cut when your whole life has to fit in one bag. 2 work polos. Jeans, my documents in a plastic folder, birth certificate, social security card, and that ATM receipt folded once. Because some part of me already understood I might need proof someday that I wasn't crazy. And 1 photo. Lily at her first birthday, cake on her fists, laughing at something off camera. I took my sister's daughter's photo and not one picture of my sister. Make of that what you will. I came downstairs. Nobody was posted at the door to stop me, which told me everything about how this story was supposed to end. I was supposed to get scared on the porch and come back in and sign. My mother stayed in the kitchen. Through the doorway I could see her wiping a counter that was already clean. My father stood in the garage doorway with his hands in his pockets. As I passed him, he pressed something into my palm without a word, then turned and studied the lawnmower. 2 folded $20 bills, $40. That was my father's entire testimony on the matter. I walked to my car, mine legally, bought used with cash and titled in my name because Hartman's manager had warned me about exactly this. I sat behind the wheel for 1 minute, waiting to feel something enormous. Here is what I actually felt. Quiet. It had taken them 18 years to teach me the lesson, but I finally had it word for word. Love in that house was a bill. And the bill was always addressed to me. If someone in your life has ever called you the strong one right before they handed you the invoice, you know what that quiet feels like, not emptiness. Clarity. Comment below if you were the one who always absorbed it. Comment if you were everyone's answer and nobody's question. Comment if you stayed calm in rooms where other people fell apart because falling apart was not in your job description. Subscribe, because what was folded inside that plastic folder 5 years later is the reason this story has a courtroom in it. I drove to my coworker Rachel's place and slept on her couch. Nobody called. Here is 5 years fast, because I refused to make it sound sadder than it was. 6 weeks on Rachel's couch, paid in groceries, a certified nursing assistant course, 6 weeks, cheapest entry into healthcare that exists. A rehab facility, handrails, and the quiet education of watching how bodies and families fail in similar ways. 2 jobs. Prerequisites at community college, 1 class at a time. Study sessions in break rooms and parking lots and the front seat of my car. At 20, a 2-year nursing program on a partial scholarship and a federal loan. At 22, I passed my boards on the first try and cried in the parking lot of the testing center. The only place I permitted crying that entire era. By 23, I was a pediatric nurse at a children's hospital in Columbus, and I'd just signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment. The second bedroom was going to be an office. Remember that. In 5 years, my family called me 0 times. Not on my birthday, not at Christmas, not when the local paper printed my name with the nursing pin. I kept count the whole way. Nurses are good at charts. Then on a Tuesday night in March, at 9:40 p.m., my phone showed a number I hadn't seen in 5 years but knew the way you know your own handwriting. The house line. I stood in my kitchen in scrubs, holding a cup of tea going cold, and let it ring 3 times before something older than my judgment picked it up. My mother was crying before I said hello. Real crying. I want to be fair. The tears were real. They were just never spent on me. Linda, thank God. Your sister needs you. No hello. No happy late birthday, 5 of them. No how are you safe? Do you have enough to eat? I stood very still and listened to 4 minutes of weather from a country I had immigrated out of. Vanessa was in trouble. Vanessa was overwhelmed. Vanessa was fragile. The call was about my sister the way every call in that house had ever been about my sister. I noticed my hands were perfectly steady. That scared me more than the call. Needs me for what? I finally asked. And my mother's crying downshifted smooth as an automatic transmission into the warm managerial tone I remembered from the kitchen table. Come home Sunday, she said. We'll explain everything as a family. That word again. Back from the dead, addressed to me like the last 5 years were a scheduling mix-up. I didn't say yes. I said the other thing. Give me the caseworker's name. The silence on a landline has a particular sound, like the whole house holding its breath. Then, my mother said too quickly that it wasn't like that. Agency people, she said. That's when my stomach understood before I did. This wasn't rent money. There was a child in this story. I told her good night, and at 8 the next morning on my day off, I called Franklin County Children's Services and asked for the caseworker on the file for Lily Cole. Being a pediatric nurse opens that particular phone tree faster than most. I knew which words to say. The caseworker's name was Donna Alvarez. She had a voice like a woman with 40 files on her desk and no time to decorate any sentence, and I trusted her within a minute on that basis alone. 3 weeks earlier, on a Friday night, Vanessa had left Lily home alone in her apartment and driven to a casino across the county line with a boyfriend. Lily was 6. A neighbor heard a child crying through the wall around midnight and called 911. Police found her alone on the couch with the television on and a box of dry cereal. Vanessa came home at noon Saturday and was charged with child endangering. The county opened a case. Lily had been staying with my parents since. I wrote it all down on the back of an electric bill in block letters. The way you chart a patient you cannot afford to get wrong. Then Alvarez said there was a complication with the grandparents' home study. Was I calling as a placement option? I told her I didn't know yet what I was calling as. The complication, I learned over the next 2 days, was this: my parents' home study had failed because Vanessa had moved into their house. Into my old room. And the county required that Vanessa, whose contact with Lily was supposed to be supervised, live elsewhere. My parents refused. My mother told the caseworker in writing that no one had the right to put her own daughter out of her home. Sit with that sentence for a moment. I have. Then came the second call, my mother's voice warm as pie filling, laying out the family plan with the lights on for once. Linda, honey, it's all just paperwork. You have the clean record. You have the good job and the nice apartment. Lily gets registered at your address. The county checks their boxes. And then things go back to normal. She'd stay with us and her mama most of the time. You wouldn't hardly have to do a thing. You're the only one whose background comes up clean. Honey, you work in that world. They'll listen to you. And there it was. The whole machine on a lit table. They didn't want a daughter back. They wanted an address to rent. A clean record, the way you rent a storage unit. And every piece of that clean record. The stable job. The spotless background. The nursing license. Existed because they had thrown me out. Their punishment had built their only exit. I sat in the hospital parking lot after a 12-hour shift and I laughed until my ribs hurt and my eyes ran. Because I finally saw the whole machine at once, and the punchline was me. If you have ever gotten that phone call, the one where they suddenly remember your number because they need something, you know that laugh. It is not a happy sound. It is the sound of finally seeing the whole circuit diagram. Tell me in the comments if you've heard it. And subscribe. Because what I did next is the reason this story exists. I called Dana Alvarez back on Monday and said a sentence I had rehearsed in the shower. I'd like to be evaluated as a kinship placement. The real kind. Full home study, background check, no shortcuts. And then I said the second part slowly. Because the second part was the actual decision. Anything my family tells you, verify with me directly. From now on, everything I do in this case happens in daylight. Alvarez was quiet a moment. People in her job can hear the difference between a volunteer and a recruit. Then she started listing requirements in her flat checklist voice. Fingerprints, income verification, references, home inspection. And the list relaxed me the way a clean protocol always does. Rules are just fairness with the emotion drained off. I had been starving for fairness my entire life. The home study took 2 months. My references were 3 people, none of them related to me, which was the easiest requirement I had ever met. A worker walked through my apartment checking window locks and smoke detectors and asked where the child would sleep. I stood in the doorway of my office that never was and heard myself say, "Her room is right here." I moved my desk to the living room that weekend. I switched from night shift to days, which cost me the shift differential. First real money this fight took from me, and I want it noted. One afternoon across my kitchen table, Alvarez looked up from her clipboard and asked the question that wasn't on it. Why did you leave home at 18? I gave it to her straight and short. The savings account. The paper I wouldn't sign. The door. She wrote for a long time, longer than my answer. I didn't know then what that note would become. I found out in November. The county approved weekend visits while the paperwork moved, and that's how I learned who Lily Cole actually was. The first Saturday, she walked into my apartment carrying her own duffel and toured the place like a health inspector. Silent, thorough, touching nothing. Then she stood in the kitchen and asked 3 questions in order, like she drafted them in the car. Which food am I allowed to eat? I opened a cabinet and told her that shelf was hers, and anything with a blue sticker was fair game anytime without asking. Where do I go when you have company? I said nowhere. This is your place too. She turned that one over like a coin she suspected was fake. What happens if I break something? I took a glass out of the cabinet, handed it to her and told her the truth. Things break, we sweep. Nobody eats a broom over it. Then I gave her a plastic cup and told her the world record for dropping it was 11 times and she was welcome to try for 12. That got me the first almost smile. She dropped it 9 times before dinner. Her second weekend, I was vacuuming her room when the vacuum head knocked against something under the bed. A pink backpack. Small, kindergarten-sized. Zipped full. I shouldn't have opened it. I'm glad I did. 2 outfits folded with a care that would shame most adults, a toothbrush in a sandwich bag, a box of raisins, and a stuffed rabbit with one ear worn down to bare fabric. Packed last on top where it could be reached fast. She had brought a go bag to her aunt's house for a weekend visit. I was still kneeling there when I felt her in the doorway. She didn't panic. She looked the way a kid looks when the teacher finds the note. Resigned to explaining the obvious. I keep it packed, she said, so it doesn't hurt when they forget me somewhere. Level voice. Reciting a house rule. I knelt on that carpet holding the strap, and I was 18 again in an upstairs bedroom, folding 2 work polos and a plastic folder of documents into a bag, because the people who were supposed to keep me had priced me out. My bag had been the end of my childhood. Hers was already packed at 6. Same family. Same luggage. 1 generation apart. I didn't make a scene, and I didn't make a speech, because a 6-year-old with a go bag has no use for either. I zipped it back up, slid it exactly where it had been, and said, "Okay. We'll keep it packed for now. It's yours. Nobody touches it. And nobody forgets you here. But it stays your call. Not theirs." She studied me for a second, nodded, and went back to her cartoons. Over the following weeks, in the low-stakes hours, braiding hair and cup drops and cartoons, Lily talked the way kids do once the radar quiets. It came out sideways, in crumbs. The casino Friday wasn't the first time. There had been other mommy's weekends since she was 5, where she was in charge of locking the door. She knew how to make 3 dinners: cereal, toast, and cheese sandwich. No stove, because the stove was against the rules when she was alone. She said all of it the way she'd said the thing about the backpack. No drama, just logistics. Here is the thing about my job. I am a mandated reporter. When a child tells a nurse she has been left alone overnight repeatedly at 5 and 6 years old, the law does not offer a family discount exemption. And I had already decided: daylight or nothing. I called Alvarez Monday morning and reported it formally. The county amended its case. Vanessa's plan got stricter: supervised visits only, parenting classes with verified attendance. And by June, Lily's placement moved officially to my apartment. My phone started ringing at 11 that same night. "What did you tell them?" my mother said. "What kind of sister are you?" I wrote that one down too. The collection was growing. What followed I could have diagrammed in advance. Part 1, Honey, 3 days of warmth. A chicken casserole appeared outside my door with a note in my mother's looping cursive about how proud she was of the woman I'd become. She texted me a photo from the family album, me at 9, holding a dustpan in one hand and a doll in the other. She meant it as nostalgia. It was better evidence than anything my lawyer would find later. Even the sweet talk told the truth if you looked at what everyone in the pictures was holding. Then Part 2, right on schedule: vinegar. My cousin Beth called me afterward, half whispering, to report what my mother had said at Sunday dinner over the pot roast. That Linda had left home at 18 because she was selfish, broke her parents' hearts, and now, Lord willing, she had been given one chance to redeem herself, and instead she was feeding the family to the government. My father passed the rolls and said nothing. I want to be honest about what that did to me. Sitting alone in my kitchen, picturing that table. It still burned. 23 years old, a badge, a license, a lease. And it still burned. But I had learned something that spring. In that family, whoever told the story owned the truth. In a courtroom, the storyteller has to swear in. Vanessa came to my apartment once that summer, unannounced, on a Tuesday evening. No makeup. She looked ironed flat. And for the first time in my life, my sister sat at my table and said something true. "You think I chose this?" She was looking at her own hands. "They decided I was helpless when I was 10, Linda. You don't remember, because you were 6 and busy being the other thing. Nobody ever made me finish anything. Not school. Not a job. Not." And she tipped her chin toward Lily's drawing on my refrigerator and couldn't say her daughter's name in the sentence. "At least your role came with a spine. Mine came with an allowance." I sat very still, watching the machine from a new angle, and it was the saddest view yet. 2 little girls, 1 house, 2 costumes handed down like sizes. Mine stitched from responsibility, hers from helplessness, both fitted before either of us could read. For about 10 seconds I almost reached across the table. Then, in the same breath, with the same tired eyes, my sister showed me why the costume always wins. "So you owe me," she said, soft. "Reasonable. Tell the caseworker Friday night was the first time. Tell them I had the flu, not the casino. They believe nurses. You're one of them. They'll take it from you." The honest minute was over. It had been an on-ramp. I said no. No explanation stapled to it, no apology cushioning it. The first complete sentence of my adult life. Then September came. Second Thursday of the school year, 2:50 in the afternoon, my phone rang at work. The school office. A voice too casual for its own sentence. Just confirming Lily was picked up early by her mother. That's authorized, correct? The floor of the nurse's station tilted. It was not authorized. Vanessa was supervised only, and the school had the paperwork. But paperwork is only as strong as the newest clerk in the front office. That day, the woman at the desk saw a mother with a matching last name and waved. I stood in a supply closet with my heart slamming and did it by the book. Called Alvarez. Called the non-emergency line. Gave plates and description and said the words unauthorized removal and supervised visitation order. Then I did the hardest clinical skill I own. I waited. 4 hours. At 6:40 an officer called. Located, both safe, food court at Eastland Mall. Vanessa had bought her a soft pretzel and a teddy bear, and when approached she was genuinely bewildered by the fuss, because in her weather system it was just a mom treating her daughter to an afternoon out. Nobody's villain. That's what made it terrifying. When they brought Lily back that night, she walked straight past the new teddy bear on the counter, went into her room, and came back out holding the pink backpack by both straps, pressed against her chest like a life vest. Alvarez called at 9. Her flat checklist voice had something new in it, final and certain. This changes the timeline, Linda. Temporary isn't going to protect her anymore. Across my kitchen table a few days later, Alvarez laid out what temporary actually meant. As long as I was just a placement, the case stayed open. Every review, Vanessa got another 90 days to perform stability. Every relative retained standing to petition. My parents were already asking about a family arrangement, their phrase. And Lily would live her whole childhood in 90-day increments, with a backpack under her bed waiting for the weather to change. Then Alvarez squared her folder and said there was a longer road, if I was willing to walk it. Filing for legal custody. Going from the county's address on file to Lily's actual court-ordered person. Petitioner, party to the case. On the record, under oath, against my own family, in a building with a flag in every room. I asked what happened to placements who stayed temporary. She was quiet a moment, and Dana Alvarez was never quiet. The ones like her, she said. They learned to keep the bag packed. I looked down the hall at Lily's door. Some sentences don't persuade you. They just turn on the light in a room you were already standing in. That fall, I sat in a legal aid office that smelled like burnt coffee across from an attorney named Ruth Okafor, who charged on a sliding scale and wasted no words. My kind of person. We filed a petition for legal custody of Lily Cole in Franklin County Juvenile Court. Attached to it, sworn before a notary, was my affidavit. The whole pattern, in dates and numbers, no adjectives. The joint account and the $9,300. The gift paper I refused to sign at 18. The door. 5 years of silence. Then the phone call, not to reconcile, but to rent my clean record, in my mother's own cheerful wording. The casino night. The earlier nights, the pink backpack under the bed of a first grader who kept it stocked with raisins and a rabbit so it wouldn't hurt when they forgot her somewhere. Ruth read my draft twice and looked up over her glasses. You understand what this does, she said. It's not just testimony about Vanessa. It documents the household. Once it's filed, there's no version of this where you're the daughter who eventually comes home. I thought of a 6-year-old correcting home to my aunt's home, catching herself like she'd been caught stealing something. And I signed my name. I noticed, the way you notice a scar in cold weather, that this was the second piece of paper my family's story had ever put in front of me. At 18, they slid me a lie and a pen, and staying in the family was the price of signing. At 23, I picked up my own pen and paid the same price in reverse. The truth resigned the position permanently in triplicate. If you're still listening, you already know why that signature mattered. Comment the packed backpack below if this story is landing somewhere real for you. Subscribe, because the hearing is where 12 years of swallowed sentences finally got said out loud into a microphone, under oath, in public, where they could not be taken back. The family went to war the way respectable families do. No bullets, all narrative. My Aunt June called to inform me that suing your own blood was a sin she personally could never imagine. 2 cousins unfollowed me, which I survived. 8 days before the hearing, Vanessa's lawyer, paid for by my parents naturally, called Ruth with a settlement. They would agree to my custody, uncontested, sign it tomorrow. In exchange, Vanessa's visitation went unsupervised effective immediately, and I withdrew the affidavit. The family doesn't need old stories in a public file, was their phrasing. Ruth related in her flattest translation voice, and I'll tell you honestly, it wasn't nothing. Trials are dice, and this handed me custody without rolling them. I'd have Lily legally by tomorrow. All I had to do was let the record lie about the machine, and hand the machine 2 unsupervised days a week to run on a 6-year-old. I asked Ruth one question, unsupervised, starting when? She checked the letter. Immediately I saw it clear as a chart trend. Some ordinary Friday in February. A treat, an errand, a boyfriend, a casino across the county line. A first grader locking a door behind her mother because those were the rules when she was alone. And somewhere, under some future bed, a bag repacked. I told Ruth I'd answer by Monday, and I drove home the long way. That night my mother played her last card. And she played it beautifully. No tears. That's how I knew it was the real offensive. She saved her dry voice for closing. Linda, sweetheart, a word I hadn't heard aimed at me since grade school, and I hated what it did to my chest. Come home, she said. Sunday dinners. Christmas morning. You and Lily both. Stockings on the rail. Vanessa will sign whatever the lawyers want. We can be a family again. All you have to do is take the old stories out of the file. Families don't need judges, Linda. They just need one person big enough to let the past go. And I stood at my stove holding the phone with both hands, 23 years old. And I am going to tell you the whole truth even though it's the least flattering sentence in this story. I wanted it. Every cell. 12 years I had been standing outside the glass of that family watching the light on in the kitchen. And here was my mother holding the door open at last, and the room behind her was warm and real. The price tag was hanging exactly where it always hangs in that house. The truth retracted, the record scrubbed, and the bill quietly forwarded, as always, to the smallest person in the family. My mother said my name again, gently, so we'll see you Thursday then, take care of that paperwork. I closed my eyes. I'll see you Thursday, Mom, I said, and hung up before she could hear which sentence I hadn't said. Franklin County Juvenile Court. Thursday, 8:40 in the morning. Waxed linoleum, fluorescent lights with a faint insect buzz. A flag gone dusty at the fringe, a hallway of blue plastic chairs holding other families having the worst morning of other years. Lily was at school where 6-year-olds belong during hearings. Maya's mom had pickup covered either way, because I planned for outcomes. It's the job on my side of the hallway. Ruth in gray. Alvarez with her folders. Lily's guardian ad litem, a retired teacher who had interviewed us both twice. Their side arrived in a procession I heard before I saw. Vanessa in a small floral dress I'd have bet money my mother had chosen. My mother in church clothes, chin high, gripping my father's arm. My father in the suit he wears to funerals. Before the courtroom, there was one more stop. A conference room. Their settlement on the table for the last time. A printed agreement squared in front of an empty chair, and a pen laid on top of it. Diagonal, presentational, the way the gift paper had been laid out on a kitchen table 5 years and 2 lifetimes ago. My family does love setting a table for me. My mother looked at me across it. And I'll give her this. The look wasn't tactical. It was just her asking. Vanessa's lawyer cleared his throat. Miss Myers, have you considered our proposal? The vent hummed. Ruth's pen hovered. Everyone in that room waited to hear which daughter had walked in. I opened my mouth. No. The affidavit stays in. Everything I have to say about my family, I'll say under oath, in the open, with everyone listening. That's the only kind of family conversation I do now. Nobody had a countermove. You can outmaneuver a scheme. There is no lever on a person who has stopped negotiating in the dark. My mother's face closed like a shop for the night. We went in. When my turn came, I put my hand up, swore, and testified the way Ruth had coached me and the way I had charted my entire career: onset, duration, frequency, the joint account, dated, the $9,300, dated, the gift paper in the door, dated, 5 years of no contact. I named the birthdays, then the phone call and the plan for my address in my mother's own wording. Then Lily. The casino night from the county file, the earlier nights from the child interview, and the pink backpack under the bed of a first grader who kept it stocked with raisins and a rabbit so it wouldn't hurt when they forgot her somewhere. The courtroom air changed on the backpack. It always does. Grand betrayals impress people. The small logistics of a child's fear will bend a room at the waist. Vanessa's lawyer came at me on cross with the family script almost word for word. Isn't it true you've resented your sister for years and this petition is your revenge? I let the question sit one beat. If I wanted revenge, I said, I'd have stayed away. Staying away was working fine, and that's when the script did the one thing I never could have engineered. It read itself aloud. Vanessa stood up at the counsel table over her own lawyer's hand on her sleeve and called out to the judge, to the room, to the flag, she's the strong one. She was always supposed to be the one who handles things. The gavel came down. But it was already in the record. My family's operating system testified to an open court by its favorite child. Near the end, the judge took off his glasses and asked the question underneath all the others. Ms. Myers, you're 23, single, shift work, first year into your career. Explain to me why you're asking this court for a child. I looked at my mother for 1 second. She was sitting very straight, purse on her lap like a shield, and I realized I had been waiting 12 years to answer a question she had never once asked me. Then I turned back to the judge and answered him instead. All my life, I was told I was the strong one. In my family, strong just meant the one who pays. I've paid in money and I've paid in years, and I'm done being strong like that. What Lily needs isn't the strong one, it's something better. I'd rather be the one who stays. The court reporter's keys ticked it into permanence, and the quiet after was the loudest thing my family ever gave me. Then a chair scraped. The loudest sound in the story. My mother stood in the gallery. She didn't shout. She smoothed her church skirt, took up her purse, and said, dry as a closing argument, to me and to the room and to the record, you were born cold, Linda. Keep the child. You've finally taken everything. And she walked out. My father stood in stages and followed her, and at the door he turned and looked back at me for 1 second. I have spent years deciding what was in that look. I have settled on this. It was an apology the exact size of $40. The door eased shut on its piston hinge. No slam. That house always did prefer a quiet exit. I sat still in my chair, hands folded, and did not go after them. You have no idea what it cost, and you have no idea what it bought. I had just won my daughter-to-be and lost my mother in the same 60 seconds. In front of strangers. Under a dusty flag. Both permanent. Both mine. What was left went quickly, the way the important part of a surgery is somehow the quietest. The guardian ad litem, the retired teacher, read her recommendation in a steady classroom voice. Placement with the aunt should be made permanent. The child was thriving. And then, closing her folder, she added the phrase I will keep until I die. In this observer's opinion, the child has finally unpacked. Alvarez testified to a stable placement and a completed home study checklist, flat and accurate. When the judge asked her assessment of me, she read from the note she had taken at my kitchen table back in April. The long one. About why I left home at 18. So that's what the note turned into. The judge granted legal custody of Lily Cole to Linda Myers. Vanessa's visitation stayed supervised, with a written case plan attached. A real ladder back, if she ever chose to climb it. Classes and clean months and consistency. The same ladder offered to every parent in that building. I want that noted. The court left her a door. So did I. Some machines you dismantle. People, you leave a ladder. Outside, the November sky over Columbus was the color of a nickel. I sat in my car in the courthouse parking garage, the same seat where I had laughed until my ribs hurt back in March. This time I cried for about 90 seconds. One hand on the wheel, the other on the folder with the order inside it. Then I blew my nose, fixed nothing about my face, and drove to Lincoln Elementary because it was 2:40 and the pickup line forms early. Some doors close in a courtroom. The one that mattered was the passenger door of a Honda opening at 2:55 for a kid with her hood up against the drizzle, asking what's for dinner. Here is the aftermath, measured honestly, because this channel doesn't traffic in lightning bolts. Vanessa came to the visitation center twice in December. In January, once, late, by spring, some months she didn't come at all. I'd sit in the center's parking lot with Lily's booster in the back seat, working out what to say, and Lily would buckle herself in and say it for me. Mommy forgot again. Logistics voice. But quieter, every time. And then one day not quieter, just done. A fact filed under other facts. My sister isn't a monster. I need you to hear that from me. She is what that house built. A woman handed helplessness as a job description at 10 years old, and nobody ever taught her to finish anything, so she doesn't. The ladder the court left her is still bolted to the wall. She has never put a foot on it. My mother sent one card that first winter. Cream-colored, her looping cursive steady as ever. When you're ready to apologize, we are ready to forgive you. I read it twice at the kitchen counter, then I put it in the plastic folder. The one I had carried out of that house at 18, right behind a 5-year-old ATM receipt, for a balance of 0. Same handwriting on the ledger if you know how to read it. I never wrote back. The invoice finally reached a customer who had closed the account. And then there was the evening in late spring, an ordinary Tuesday, spaghetti on the stove, spelling homework on the table, when Lily put down her pencil, walked to her room without a word, and came back dragging the pink backpack by one strap. I stopped stirring. She unzipped it on the living room floor like a surgeon opening a case, and then, businesslike, she dismantled it. The 2 folded outfits went into her dresser, 3rd drawer. The toothbrush in the sandwich bag went to the bathroom cup, the raisins went to her food shelf, the one with the blue stickers. Last, the rabbit with the worn ear came out and took his new post on her pillow, facing the door, on guard duty at last instead of on standby. Then, she hung the empty backpack on her doorknob and went back to her spelling like nothing had happened. I stood at that stove with the spoon in my hand and my back to her for a full minute. Because the rule in my house is that nobody performs their feelings at a 7-year-old. When I could talk, I said, "You don't have to be the strong one, Lily. You don't have to be the fragile one either. You just have to be Lily." She thought about it the way kids consider the obvious. "Okay," she said. "Can I have more noodles?" That was the whole ceremony. 7 years on. I'm 30, and the girl with the go bag is 13, and she argues with me about phone hours like it's her paid profession and slams her door over curfew and hollers that I'm ruining her life. And every unremarkable, mouthy, gloriously ordinary minute of it is the trophy. The backpack holds pool towels now. She packs it in June for swim season because she wants to. That's the entire difference. And it took 2 generations to buy. Here is what 12 years inside this particular family taught me. The way a nurse learns from a chart, rather than a speech. In some families, "you're the strong one" is not a compliment. It is an invoice. And the day you stop paying it isn't the day you stop loving your family. It's the first day you love someone, including yourself, the honest way. With both eyes open and the lights on. Not the strong one, just the one who stays. I finally understand those are not the same thing at all. If this story reached you tonight, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me if you've ever been handed that particular invoice. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.